Alright, so last week I talked a lot of smack about how the MCU is actually working exactly as it's intended to, because that's how the comics are made, and you know that if you actually read comics, and reading comics isn't that hard because a lot of them do a lot of legwork to actually get you invested and give you the context for why things are happening, let you know the history you need to know in the moment. And I said I would come back and I would talk about a good example of that from recent years. And so that's why today we're going to be talking about The Vision, a run from Tom King and Gabriel Hernandez Walta. And yeah, hey, I actually have the trade paperbacks of this to use as props for this video, which is great, but I don't always have that sort of thing on hand. So if you want to help out the channel and make it so I do, or can go out and get the props I need on a moment's notice, go check out my Patreon, buy something from my merch store, or even just buy me something you think I might need to make my videos better from my throne list. Every little bit helps, guys, so go do that stuff. This is something I think everybody has kind of talked to death already because it was hugely critically acclaimed at the time, and it also partially inspired the Disney Plus WandaVision show, but it's a good one to go to. It's critically acclaimed for a reason. So we're gonna talk about this a little bit, and I'm gonna kind of get some thoughts of mine out years after I first read it. The series follows the Vision, who is pretty similar to his MCU counterpart. A lot of the basic details are the same there. He was made by Ultron. He's a robot who wants to be human. He has a very complicated relationship with the Scarlet Witch, but you don't even really need to know all of that because it's explained sort of piecemeal through narration and a few big flashback issues sprinkled in this 12-issue run. It comes at a time when he had just attempted to give himself a mind wipe because he was really depressed about some things that had been happening in his life, and he decides to go for a big change in his life. He decides to try and emulate the ideal suburban family by creating this whole robot family for himself. He has a wife named Virginia, a son named Vic, and a daughter named Viv, and they all kind of live in this quiet little neighborhood and start trying to live a daily life, but none of them really seem to be happy. Like, Vision is kind of just going through the motions at work and doesn't even really seem to be respected by anybody at home. One of the first things the family does together is they have a dinner conversation because they're robots and they can't actually eat, but all the other members are like, why are we doing this if we can't eat? We're just sitting around talking at this table for no real reason. And he's like, it's because it's part of the experiment, guys. And in the meantime, Virginia is just stuck at home feeling closed off and sad, and the kids are kind of outcasts at school. They start trying to seek validation through various means. Viv gets a boyfriend who seems weirdly enamored with her, and Vic goes out for drama club and starts getting really obsessed with the works of William Shakespeare. And because they're putting themselves out there like that, it leads to certain horrors of the real world, like prejudice, coming to them, and Virginia having to step in and protect her kids in some very terrifying and gruesome ways that Vision then has to come in and try and cover up, and that keeps happening, and it eventually snowballs to a point where the final issue sees Vision being confronted by the whole Marvel Universe because this experiment of his has seemingly gone extremely awry and is now being a huge threat. And if I could put on my pompous YouTube analysis guy hat for just a minute, I'd theorize that King is using this whole narrative as a way to make a point that the ideal suburban family life doesn't actually exist. It's not a real thing. No matter how perfect and simple you try to make your life seem, the real world and all its complications will always be there. And you're never going to get validation through this quest. The only validation you can get is by enjoying your own life in its own imperfect ways. And Vision never really gets this. Even at the end of the series, where two of his family members are dead and one of them is seemingly scarred for life, he seems to be restarting the experiment somehow in a very haunting way, which is another thing I want to throw out there. King does a great job at conveying characters and tone and what you need to get from the thematics of this story through his words, but Walter also does an amazing job as an artist. There's so many different moods expressed throughout this series, from surreality to horror to sensuality to humor to high-flying action. Anything you could possibly expect from a comic is depicted here, and depicted well. I really like the art style and how it constantly is conveying this sort of shifting but always sort of morose tone that the book goes for. And that's pretty much all I want to say here. There's a lot more intricate details and eccentricities with this book that I could get into, but that's not the point of this video. The point of this video is to tell you that this is good and interesting and fairly recent. You can go pick up either these 2 trade paperbacks or a big hardcover from this from most any comic book retailer right now, and it gives you a good enough eye into the wider Marvel universe that you can kind of jump off from there into current. Sure, there's a few things that are different now, but by and large, this is standalone and all-encompassing enough at the same time that you can kind of get a good feel for what Marvel Comics are like, and the constant, like, delving into of the Vision's backstory through the narration and the flashbacks really sells it so well. So yeah, guys, that wraps up this 2-part little spiel about why comics are cool and easy to get into, so you should just go and do that. I don't really have anything else to say on the topic, but I got plenty more to say about comics. I will do more comic videos in the future, because again, they're fun and I like them. I like more than just the simple Marvel DC bullshit too. I've got a lot of independent books I could talk about at some point. So hopefully you guys enjoy and are intrigued enough by this for me to do that one day. We'll see what happens when these videos actually come out, because I'm shooting them quite a bit ahead of time. But until next time, this is the Vacuuminator reminding you that you never fail until you stop trying. So don't stop trying to read comics. It's actually pretty easy.